Joe Biden's approval rating among Democrats is 77% today, actually 5 points higher than it was a year ago. A lot of people have asked, how can that be? To be honest, I'm not sure. Part of it is that they don't necessarily think things in this country are as bad as you do, and part of it is undoubtedly that they don't blame Biden. But we have results from a new question that might be able to shed a little light on the matter. But first, President Joe Biden is now 80 years old. He recently announced that he will run for re-election next year. In terms of his chances of winning re-election, how serious of a problem will his age be? 73% of voters say at least a somewhat serious problem, and 49% say very serious. Only 7% say not at all serious. Here are the party numbers, and a pretty incredible 88% of Republicans say that Biden's age is a problem. 73% of them say a very serious problem. 70% of independents agree, with 49% saying very serious. But look at Democrats. 61%, a pretty massive majority, say it's at least a somewhat serious problem. That 61% is a pretty soberingly large number. But notice that only 27% of Democrats, and that's a startlingly low number in my opinion, think Biden's age is a serious problem. And keep in mind, as of the last asking, although 56% of likely voters don't want President Biden to run for re-election, a majority of Democrats, 53%, still want him to run. Notice, however, that only 9% of Democrats think his age is not at all a serious problem. Here are the numbers by Biden approval. Look how close the strongly and somewhat approves are. Only an average of 17% of them think that Biden's age is a very serious problem. But many, many more among Biden disapprovers think it's a problem, with somewhat disapproves surprising me with how strongly they felt about his age. Ostensibly, if Democrats ran a younger candidate, they would do better among these people. But to me, this is a pretty interesting data point about how much Biden's age alone is driving perceptions of his job approval. But here's the kicker. Is Joe Biden really doing the job of president, or are others making decisions for him behind the scenes? Only 38% of U.S. likely voters think Joe Biden is really doing the job of president, while 55% think others are making decisions for him behind the scenes. Now here's the headline. We've asked this question before a few times, and this is the absolute worst for Biden the results have ever been. The number of voters thinking Biden is really doing the job of president has entirely collapsed, down 6 points from 44% just over 2 months ago. The others are making decision for him response is up 7 points from 48% at the end of February. It looks like these presidential lids and pictures of notes from Biden's staged appearances might be starting to add up. Here are the party numbers showing, as expected, Democrats are kind of out on their own here. 65% of them still think Biden is really doing the job. Really high. But still, that's down 6 points from just February. But please take a moment to internalize this. 77% of Democrat voters approve of Biden's job performance today, but 65% of them still think Biden is calling the shots. So maybe that's why his approval is still high among Democrats. Only 28% of Democrats think others are calling the shots for Biden. Republicans, by more than a 6-1 margin, say that Biden's handlers are in charge. But look at independents, 57% to 32%, a 25-point spread, which is incredible for them, but recall that in our recent polling, Trump only wins by 16 points among independents. So not all 25% of these are turned off by the thought that Biden isn't in the driver's seat. Now, there are a lot of interesting things in the crosstabs, but here's one that stood out to me. By education, the only demographic that thought Biden is in charge are those with graduate degrees. The only other group that comes even close is college graduates, but they still say Biden is just doing what he's told by a 16-point margin. Here's one more interesting slide. Whether people think Biden is in charge by how they answered whether Biden's age is a serious problem. Those who say very serious are the only ones who, by a majority, say others are calling the shots for Biden. Even those who say his age is a somewhat serious problem think Biden is in charge by a plurality, 49%, 11 points more than those who say others are making the decisions behind the scenes. But of all the data in this poll, here's the one that should frighten the fledgling Biden campaign the most. Here are the independent numbers compared to where they were just over 2 months ago. They are rapidly deteriorating, with 8 points more independents saying others are making decisions for Biden behind the scenes, and an overall 17-point shift in opinion. We hope these results were interesting. If you want to help others see the video, please hit the like button, subscribe on YouTube, please follow us on Twitter, and thanks for watching.